Joining us now is former Victorian Liberal Party President and Sky News contributor Michael Kroger. Michael, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
The Albanese government has lifted the biosecurity restrictions on US beef, which could see the full resumption of exports into Australia. The government, of course, is dismissing speculation that the timing is politically motivated amid ongoing efforts to secure a tariff exemption from Trump. And there are right now concerns around how this could impact Australian farmers and our beef industry. Why have we seen the backflip?
Well, because we're a free trading nation, and you'd have to think that the two are linked, despite what the government says. I don't think there's actually been a ban. What there's been concern about here in Australia is clarity on where the beef comes from. So the Australian governments successively since 2019 have wanted clarification that the beef was born in America, the cattle were born in America, not born in Canada or Mexico. And that's been very grey. Now it appears that the Australian government has agreed to allow beef imports, including from Mexico and Canada. There was always biosecurity concerns because of mad cow disease, etc. So there's been a change of policy here. But is it going to affect the market in Australia that greatly? I don't think so. We've got the best beef in the world here. We're very happy to have beef from America or wherever, but it won't compete, Gav, with the quality of Australian beef, which we export a lot and export a lot to America, of course.
It's interesting, though, we're seeing this move by the Labor government, but Anthony Albanese is still yet to secure a face-to-face meeting with Donald Trump. When's that going to happen?
Well, it'd be very wise to avoid a White House meeting with Trump because Albanese has been a personal critic of Trump, as has a number of his ministers and as has our ambassador in Washington, Kevin Rudd, who's sort of an embarrassment to our country. And so Albanese can't risk going into the White House, into the Oval Office, sitting there at a meeting with Donald Trump, with JD Vance sitting there, and our ambassador there, who basically called Trump a threat to democracy, a crazy man, a village idiot, etc., all those things. So Albanese can't risk a meeting in the Oval Office. So what'll happen is he'll meet Trump on the sidelines of some of these international fora, the G8, etc., and he'll say, "I've had a meeting," and there'll be a picture opportunity. But he'll avoid a meeting with JD Vance sitting there because Vance is likely to launch into him, and no one will ever forget the Zelensky White House meeting, and Albanese can't afford a repeat of that.
Now, it's been revealed that more than 50% of voters rely on the government for their main income. The AFR is reporting that the federal and state government spending splurge has hit the highest level since the end of World War II, and the NDIS is a chief culprit, accounting for $52 billion in costs. So more than half of voters rely on governments for most of their income through public sector wages, welfare benefits or subsidies, according to a new report by the Centre for Independent Studies. I mean, Michael, that is an alarming statistic and not sustainable.
Well, it's a Mitt Romney moment, isn't it? Romney warned about how his chances of winning were difficult because too many people were relying on government. Look, the problem in Australia is the problem in Western democracies around the world, which is unsustainable government spending and unsustainable debt. And the American debt's going from 36 to 39 trillion. Here in Australia, we've got a much smaller economy, obviously, but our national debt is going to 1.2 trillion in gross terms in about 3 years' time. Most of the growth in employment in this country has come from public sector jobs, wage increases coming from the government sector. I mean, it's just unsustainable, and you get to a point where sooner or later, someone in Australia, some governments in the Western world will say, we have enough debt, we can't keep going on. The cost of servicing debt is, beyond normal limits. These are record debts and deficits, and in Australia, it is completely unsustainable. And the government here got re-elected basically because it, offered to spend a lot more money than the opposition. That was central to its re-election campaign, which is very popular with the electorate. But it's not possible to keep going this way. And sooner or later, there's going to have to be an opposition or a government that says we have to draw the line under this, because in a rich country like Australia, a first world country, one of the richest, healthiest nations in the world, half the country on government benefits, that's not sustainable.
No, not at all. Let's talk about net zero. Susan Lee is facing pressure over the coalition's growing concern for the net zero policy. According to The Australian, the Western Australia Liberal State Council is reportedly joining forces with the Northern Territory and South Australia to abandon net zero. We know that Shadow Home Affairs Minister Andrew Hastie initiated a motion to the Liberal State Executive for the Federal Party to ditch the policy. Michael, where's this going to go?
Well, it's going to be increased pressure in Australia to drop the net zero commitment. It does look as if it's fantasy land. We'd all like to get to net zero. Everyone agrees with that. But the cost of it, the possibility of it, it relies on huge amounts of renewable energy, which is great in theory. But country people have to put up with the wind towers all over rural Australia, thousands of them, which they don't want. Obviously impinging upon their land. We've seen a lot of projects in Australia for offshore wind collapse because it's just not economically sustainable. And Australians are now starting to understand, well, look at China and India, two of the biggest emitters in the world, are not committed to net zero. Why are we, one of the few countries in this region, committed to net zero? It's doing great economic harm to the country. And so the debate in Australia is going to get louder and louder to drop net zero. You'd like to keep but the government's got to show how we're going to get there, and I just don't think it looks good.
No, I agree with you. Look, a couple of global stories. Let's turn to the UK, where more protests are expected to follow those in Epping after protests broke out in the Essex town after a migrant was charged with sexual assault. And there are, of course, growing concerns that mass migration is threatening community cohesion. Can I get your reaction to what's been happening over there?
So this is a problem a lot of Western countries around the world are facing. Why wouldn't you, if you were an impoverished person from a third world country, want to get to Britain, want to get to America, want to get to France? Of course you would. You'd want to take your family for a better life. But it's just not possible. There are tens of millions of economic migrants who would like to, live in Western countries. It's just not sustainable. And so the problem in Britain is a bit like in America, a weakness of government, a failure of government to put in place ways of stopping illegal immigration. You have sympathy for people, but it's just not possible for countries like Britain to have thousands and thousands of people arriving every week, undocumented economic migrants. Now, in Australia, as we know, we stopped the boat people coming. We turned around boats. Controversial policy, but we turned around boats basically from Indonesia where it was safe to do so. And of course, the British government, Conservative and Labor, have been hopeless. They have no idea what they're doing. And no wonder Nigel Farage is ahead in the polls, because successive Conservative and Labor governments have just been hopeless. The French have been hopeless, the British have been hopeless. The answer in Britain is to do what we did here, to turn around boats back to France where it is safe and legal to do so. And if you have to transfer them to other boats to make sure they get back safely, that's what needs to be done. I mean, these poor people, and also you have to smash the people smuggling model, which was one of the reasons the illegal trade stopped in Australia, was because we let everyone know, we let the potential migrants know that if you come to Australia, you won't be able to stay here. We engineered offshore processing for people. So to break the people smuggler mould, that is critical to the whole resolution of this problem. And the Starmer government and the previous Conservative governments appear to be hopeless at dealing with this issue, and no wonder Farage is winning in the polls.
Finally, to the US, I want to get your thoughts on the Democrats, because Tim Walz has announced that he's not running in 2028. Let's look at this.
Last two quick questions. First question that people would kill me if I didn't ask. Are you thinking about running in 2028?
I am not. And my job, and I say that, I am doing all I can to help build the party and make sure whoever that person is wins.
Well, we appreciate
And I think we need to flood the zone with people.
Oh no, Michael. What are the Democrats going to do now?
Well, there'll be an outbreak of mass depression in America today, knowing Tim Walz is not going to run for the nomination in 28. I don't know how people will be able to get to bed in America today. I thought his performance was the performance of a clown, quite frankly, as the running mate of Kamala Harris. He's not a serious person, this bloke. I mean, he got up at that rally one day and said his major objection to the Republicans was that they'd taken the joy out of politics. Not world poverty, not crime, not illegal border crossings, not wars in the Middle East and in the Ukraine. Joy was his main complaint. this bloke, thank goodness he's not running. He wasn't going to win anyway. He had as much chance of winning the presidency as I have, and I'm not an American citizen. So I think the likely candidate will be Kamala Harris. Why wouldn't she run again? What's she got to lose? She can lose again, but she can win. So to me, she looks like the candidate for the Democratic Party. As bizarre as that sounds, she's only got Gavin Newsom to beat. He's got a shocking record in California. And I think, people are going to say to her, why don't you run again? She'll probably get the nomination because the left control the Democratic convention. So Kamala will have to find a new running mate, and sadly, it ain't going to be Tim Walz.
Michael Kroger, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Great to talk to you.
Pleasure.